It's almost like, when the tornado warnings come and the forecast is like there's going to be a tornado, and now things are picking up speed, and there's just moments where it feels like the tornado's there. It's just a question of, is it going to touch down to your life, to your household, right? But even if it does or does not, you still have to keep operating,
Yeah.
right? You still have to take care of your obligations, your needs, your family. Whatever your household looks like, you need to take care of those obligations. And now we are living in an environment that makes taking care of those obligations more stressful.
Maritza, welcome to Unleash Your Light with Luz. Thank you so much for being here. I am really excited because you are someone who I absolutely adore. To me, you are like my big sister. You have been such an incredible mentor, a friend, a boss. That's how we met. And I have been really blessed by having you in my life. So thank you so much for being on here. So tell us a little bit about Maritza. What do you do? Just tell us who you are.
Luz, thank you so much for having me on today. I mean, it is such a pleasure, and it's a pleasure to really be frontline to your journey. And we'll give a little bit of background on, yes, we have known each other for a long time in many capacities. Luz, you've always been a cornerstone of stability and a voice of reason throughout all of our years. And I'm so happy to see you now sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge and just curiosity about living a better life with everyone. So, to answer your question, what am I doing now? Well, right now I am a multi-hyphenate. I am a senior media consultant. I do communications strategy. I am a mindfulness, wellness, and leadership coach. And people are going to be like, wow, those things, how do those things fit together? But actually, each one of those informs the other. So whether it is strategic communications and using the mindfulness and really being clear and present, or just having a situation where maybe the communication is not clear and flowing, and looking at how do I implement or rely on or pull out the tools of mindfulness, and all of that rolling up into storytelling, right? How do we identify ourselves? How do we share ourselves? How do we share our messaging if it's work? And more importantly, how are we leaders, whether it is at work, at home, or just in your personal life? So that kind of sums it up.
I love that. One of the things that really has always stood out to me about you is that you just know how to pull everything together and how to connect everything. And whenever I've had, the need, where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then you're like, well, Luz, I always say that you are a wealth of information, walk like on legs. Like you're always, you have so much, just so much information. And when we worked together, we used to call you Dr. Puello, because it's like, oh, something, I'm not feeling well. We weren't well in some way, and we would go to your office and you would tell us, well, Luz, it could be this. How are things? I just love that. And that's why today we're going to talk about how
Really,
do we,
wellness. I love that you said that, because that's something that's been a long standing part of me, right? The curiosity, the learning, but like, how do we connect mind, body, and spirit, regardless of whether you're in the office or at home or at the gym or yoga, right? Like, it's all information, right? Like, the body informs the mind. The mind might inform the body, which is usually the case. But like, how do we bring that all together so that we have a more holistic view of an experience of ourselves and what's going on in the moment?
yes. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you was because given the state of our country, the world, just there's so much happening. And I think I can speak for myself when I say that it can be very heavy. And you either sometimes just like go in a rage speaking for myself, or completely like just like block everything out and hide. And I don't think either of those are very healthy. So that's the conversation that I want us to have today. Tell us, how can we take care of our well-being while still being present and aware of what's happening around us without just completely checking out?
Well, for me, and the foundation of all the work that I do, so cross category, or if I'm working in a more corporate setting, or I'm working, leading a workshop, or doing individual coaching, right? In our world today, and I'm hesitant to use the word unprecedented, but it is unprecedented. We are living in a time that we've never seen the world come together or basically be siloed in the way that it is right now, right? I will mention pandemic. I know that people are pandemic fatigued, but we are now approaching 6 years since the world shut down due to a global pandemic. And part of what's happened is that we went through dramatic changes. Some of those changes were really beneficial to us in the sense of that people got to work from home, people got to have dinner with their kids, got to actually slow down and not have to look for an excuse to find time to read a book. But coming out of that, there was a lot of pressure to go back to the way things were before, right? And to
Yeah.
be productive and to always be hustling. And the truth is that there were a lot of things that were heavy and sad and that we didn't get a chance to grieve. Not just the people who lost their lives or people who lost loved ones, but the way of having kind of like that knowledge of what's available to you if you are not all about work all the time. What happens when you're forced to make a change, but the whole community is changing at the same time, right? There's a big difference between you, an individual or an individual household, having to stop and readjust, as opposed to the whole entire world is also going through that. So even though we were in our individual homes and separated physically, there was a common theme. There was a communal underlying theme that everybody's life was changing to some degree at the same time.
Do you think that the experience that we had with pandemic is one of the reasons, or a big reason, why a lot of people kind of are no longer in that like hustle mode? They're focused so much more on, they're kind of questioning their life choices, right? And they're like,
A
I want to be
hundred
able
percent.
to live life differently.
We
Can you
had,
explain that?
yes, we had, again, it was a very dramatic, harsh shift. But for myself, I was now working at home exclusively. Um, and part of that was a little bit challenging, right? Because we weren't out in the world. But part of that was, you know what? I can have a hot lunch, like not a sandwich or a salad. I love my food. I love my hot food, right? I had people that I was working with who literally were working, but their child was in the other room. Or they could be doing laundry while the meeting was happening and then literally sit down and have dinner at a normal hour. And especially for people that live in big cities, right? I remember teaching a wellness workshop as we were coming out of pandemic for a company out of Ohio. And one of the participants was, I'll never forget it, because she was really angry about the return to work.
Mm.
And she had a toddler. So her baby was born a few months before pandemic. So now we're talking, this must have been around 22, 23 when they were like this particular company was like, you know what? You're going back 5 days a week. And she said to me that she had older children, not much older than the toddler, but that her concern was that her toddler, who was about three and a half, had spent half of his life with her physically 24/7 available, though she was a full-time employee. But she had her, right, the physical proximity, the being in the other room, that I'm going to take lunch and put my little out of office, the banner on thing so that I can feed him. I can put him down when he's gonna nap.
Yeah.
I can be there when he wakes up. And she said, more importantly, the whole family was coming together for an early dinner because her kids were like 10 and under. And she was really angry. She's like, I don't see why I have to give that up because the company wants me to go back. It's not affecting my output. So she realized that she had more time disposable by not having to spend the time commuting, right? And that was much more satisfying for her as a working mom and much more conducive to the way that she wanted to have her household and live her life, right? So now
Yeah.
we're having things stripped away slowly as we came out of pandemic. And now it's like it's escalated where it's, people are kind of like they're going back to work 4 or 5 days a week. Now people are complaining about the financial impact, right? Because
Yeah.
it's transportation, it's lunch, it's time away from home. Time equals money. And then you
Exactly.
throw in all of these other uncertainties, the economy, the price of everything, life, housing, healthcare, safety for your children, right? So we're coming out of pandemic where things were very in flux, unpredictably in flux, to now a time where it should be foundationally more solid ground, but it's not. It's not because there's a lot of things that are happening in the world um, that we may be directly affected, but there's so much happening that I can't see anyone indirectly not being affected by something. So now we have a very outside, it's almost like when the tornado warnings come and the forecast is like there's going to be a tornado and now things are picking up speed and there's just moments where it feels like the tornado's there. It's just a question of, is it going to touch down to your life, to your household, right? But even if it does or does not, you still have to keep operating,
Yeah.
right? You still have to take care of your obligations, your needs, your family. Whatever your household looks like, you need to take care of those obligations. And now we are living in an environment that makes taking care of those obligations more stressful because of all of the quick changes and things that are changing quickly, but whose impact we don't necessarily feel it immediately, right?
Yeah. And at least not a lot of us,
Right.
unless you're directly affected.
And I think people don't have the bandwidth to see what might be coming down the pike and how it might or might not affect them. So
So,
I want to give you a concrete example on that. There are people who don't care about the neighbor or the community or the collective, right? Because it hasn't affected them. And then they're like, oh, when it affects them, they're like, oh, oh, wow, that sucks. It's got to change. Meanwhile, the neighbor has been saying, this sucks. It needs to change now. But the other
yeah.
person was not vested because it wasn't affecting them. And that is part of our collective, our community. We don't understand that we live on one planet. The way that
Yeah.
people are living their lives, it's like there's little mini planets in an orbit. There's one planet Earth. So whether you believe in
Yeah.
climate change or not, it is affecting someone at some point. Maybe they're on the other side of the world, but it's only one planet. So we have to start thinking a little bit more of there's things that are happening in the planet that might not affect me, but with all of this uncertainty and stress being thrown at us, how can I be within my earth planet, in my household? How can I be more stable, more grounded, create more ease in my life, maybe space, and remember to have joy and levity? Because that seems to be something that a lot of people are not experiencing, or at least talking about or sharing the joy and levity.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people, there's so much happening and it's hard to, at least for me, sometimes I feel kind of guilty too,
Mm-hmm.
um, being in that like joyful kind of finding my own joy, but
Right.
it's like, how can I feel joy? Like, how dare I feel joy and be happy and kind of focus on, on the things that I enjoy, like my business or the podcast or my family, when there are people like dying, right?
And but
Like that is very, it's so how do you do that? How do
okay. So I want to get really practical tips, because that is really foundational for me about the work that I do, because it's been my experience, right?
Yeah.
Without the actual toolkit and the things to lean into, um pandemic and post-pandemic would have been very, very, very challenging, right? Part of what we have to remember is that there are things happening all the time that are painful, that are hard to watch. There are people in despair and war. But it's kind of, when you look at the rainbow, all the colors are right next to each other. All of them. So we have to be able to realize that two things, three things, four things can actually exist at the same time. And that one is not better than the other, that we don't have to judge it, that we don't, it's hard, as you said, right? And when the world is on fire and there's people suffering, and here's Luz having a party, and she's like, wait a minute, what?
Sometimes I want to go on social media and I want to talk about being positive and like, motivation and like, let's focus on your goals and your dreams. And you're like, what the F? Like,
But
literally,
that's
that's how I
okay,
feel,
because
right?
that is okay. That goes specific to creating more space in your life for all of it to be present, right? Because it's all there anyway. I think that's the part
Exactly.
that we fool ourselves into thinking, because we're only focused on one thing at a time or two things at a time. But it's all there. So is it in the background or in the foreground, right? And just giving yourself the space and the permission to be like, you know what, the world is on fire today, but I'm going to put out a positive message, because maybe I'm just putting out that positive message for my own self to hear it, deliver it, and receive it. We don't even need to make it about anybody else, right? I deliver it, I receive it. So I teach mindfulness based meditation a lot. And many times when I'm teaching class, I'm like, I am so happy that I have the opportunity to share the practice, because I am practicing in that moment. So I share it with the
Yeah.
students, but I too am a student in that moment. And it may sound a little bit like, what is she talking about? But I teach because 90% of the time, I'm just reiterating and reinforcing that for myself,
Yeah.
to remind myself that it all is there. The one who's grieving, the one who's happy, the one who has a dream, the one who's like, the dream is dead, we got to move on. The one who's like, oh my God, life, what is happening, right? The one who's like,
Yeah.
girl, you got this. Girl, you is beautiful. Girl, you is smart. Girl, you is funny, right? It's all there. But if
Yeah.
I am super stressed and my bandwidth is like this, then I'm just going to be focusing on how to resolve my stress. Instead of just, you know what? There's times when I'm a stress case. You know what I do? I look for what, and this is, we're going to dive right into now the practical steps. So when I'm a stress case, the first thing that I need to do is acknowledge that I'm stressing. And then the second question is going to be identifying, what am I feeling? Right? So that's kind of like 1.5. And then the next step is, what do I need in that moment? What do I need in that moment? What am I feeling? Name it. What do I need in that moment? That's it. Because that might not be the moment for me to take any action. And because we're so hustle culture, action driven, then we're going to want to fix it or resolve it or produce a positive results.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, we don't have the time to really sit with it. So how can you start creating this space and more ease, right? So this is where we're going back to making small little changes. And when you do those consistently, when you pick one or two things, small, super small, like so tiny that you're like, wow, why am I doing this? Is it going to make a difference? You do
Can
that
you give me an example?
100%. So when I'm doing wellness coaching with people, my coffee drinkers in the morning, the people who get up and they're like, they can't even like see the world until they have that cup of coffee. I ask them if it's the first thing they consume. 98% of the coffee drinkers will say, I don't drink anything before my coffee.
Yep.
I say to them, please drink a glass of water before your coffee. And they get hysterical. I can't do that. What are you talking about? Are you crazy? And I'm like, I am asking you to drink a glass of water. I'm not even telling you what size glass. It literally could be a 4-ounce glass of water.
Yeah,
Let's
that used to
have
be me.
you, right? Let's have you drink the water, wait like a few minutes, and then have your coffee as usual. I'm not asking you to drink less coffee. I'm not asking you to do decaf. I'm not asking you to change anything about your actual coffee routine. What I am asking you to do is when you wake up, have a glass of water, then go on to having your coffee. And when people say to me, I cannot do that, then I'm like, okay, let's take a look at what it is that you want to create in your life or have more of, and how are you going to get there? Because if you can't implement one tiny little glass of water before your coffee, it signals that your structure and your routine is very hardened. So that if something big happens, right? Like you want to meet someone, you want to buy a house, the road to getting to that big milestone is going to be much more challenging because now you're in a mindset that's fixed, right?
Yeah.
If we want to go back to the example of the tornado winds picking up speed, right? In the eye of the hurricane or the tornado is a clear, quiet spot.
Yeah.
Always. Like that's just how the weather is, right? In the middle of that eye, the eye of the storm, it's clear, it's beautiful, right? But everything is whirling around it. How can I find my way to the eye and be in that and let everything else around me just continue to whirl? Right?
Yeah.
Because I can't change the situation. I cannot control that which I cannot control.
Yep.
Cannot control the price of eggs. Cannot control the economy. I can't. But when I go to buy groceries and I have to control my budget, how do I get to the eye of the storm when prices are just surging and surging? But if I am only minding the storm and not minding myself in the eye of the storm, I'm losing opportunity. Again, space, ease, grace, and joy.
Yeah. So
So
it's
how
kind
do
of like
I, right?
learning to be present in that
Yes.
moment and finding the stillness and
But
yes,
how
but
do we
while
do that?
being flexible, like you said, like adding the water before, because I think we're very prone to just be like wanting to control everything, right? Even within that, within our the confines of our home, right? But still, like that mentally can cause
Stress.
stress, exactly. And so just kind of finding the peace, the joy, being present, but also being open to
We have to
small little
continue.
changes that will that will help us achieve whatever other goals that we have.
Exactly. Just because the world is on fire does not mean that we cannot have dreams, hopes, and aspirations. It doesn't mean that I have to put that on the back burner until the world is a little bit more stable and less wobbly. Like,
Yeah.
my dream does not have to wait. But the reality is, right now, I'm going to say something, I'll repeat it twice. We are at the intersection, the nexus between the individual need and what's happening in the collective, the community, the country, right? So
Yeah.
the individual need versus what's happening to the collective. And a lot of times, because we look to the outside, in other words, I'm going back to my tornado, we look to see how fast is the wind. Can I jump to the other side? Can I jump outside? Right? And then I'm missing everything that's going on in the eye, in the calm place, because I'm tracking my actions. I'm tracking my actions by things that are happening external to me,
Yeah.
which I probably have no control over.
All right, so why don't you recap for us and tell us like what can we do specifically to just kind of find that the center of,
The eye of the
that
storm.
peace. Yeah, the eye of the storm.
I think okay, so we're going to break it down super simple. The one thing, tiny little change that you are committed to. So picking the one or two things, right? It could be two things. It could be your water in the morning, right? First thing you get up, you drink a glass of water. And that could be for everybody, not just coffee drinkers. The small thing, maybe it is committing to flossing your teeth twice a day. So if I incorporate that, right? That actually gives me the time, the thing, the actual tool, the hammer to say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm drinking my glass of water. This is giving me a pause off the regularly scheduled program where now I can take the important step of how am I feeling in this moment, right? And if resistance comes up, that's perfect because resistance is opportunity for you to look a little bit longer or deeper, right? The small little activity that we're incorporating is giving you a time to pause quickly and assess and say, how am I feeling? I had my water. I'm great. It's going to be a great day. I had my water and there's something else that's underneath that's mind chattering, blah, 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 blah. Right? I can identify that and start building awareness. So implementing the small change is the opportunity to build awareness of yourself in that moment of presence. Presence, awareness, right? Presence, we pause, we're present. We do the activity, the small change, awareness. And then the third step, we can ask, what do I need in this moment? Right? I had my water. I feel great. Maybe that's an opportunity to be like, I am thankful. Maybe that's the opportunity to, if you have a practice of prayer, to say a prayer of thanks, right? Or just to be like, I'm going to have a great day today, right? Let's say on the other side, you're feeling stormy. So you have your water and you're not feeling great. So it's that pause, awareness. What do I need in this moment? Maybe I just need to acknowledge I don't feel great. Nothing else to do, because that's another masterclass.
Yeah.
Right? These are really simple steps because now when I start to incorporate small things, I'm getting flexible and pliable.
Yeah.
So when something comes at me that's big, good or bad, I have more space now to navigate that. Again, ease, grace, and maybe even joy.
Yeah, because we've developed that awareness. I think that is something I actually remember learning that from you specifically one time when I was on autopilot. Maritza, I could talk to you forever.
I know we could go on and on
Yes,
and
we can
on
go
and on.
on and on. So for those who would love to connect with you, to find out more about you, where can they do that?
My website is tikalife.net. I'm going to spell that. It's TIKALIFE.net. And on Instagram, it's Tika Life Wellness.
Amazing. And I will put it in the show notes so that everyone can just look in there and get it. Again, thank you so much, Maritza, for being on the podcast. What can I say?
Luz, for having me on. I hope that you take on the challenge of one tiny little small thing that you can implement.
Yes.
And try to be consistent with for 21 to 28 days and just see how that feels.
Alrighty.
Luz, thank you so much.
Thank you so much again, Maritza. It's always a pleasure to see you, to speak with you.